Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Not my words, those are the words of Albert Einstein. And if you know him, you will know good he was a very smart man. Hello and welcome to Kosi Nation Fan TV. I am Pelo, I am your host. This is where fans meet and talk about Kaizer Chiefs Football Club. And in today's video, I will be looking at how we've had 6 different coaches over 8 seasons, a lot of players becoming average or really were never good enough to be at Chiefs, and yet over and over again we've kept on doing the same thing. Buy average players or not buy players at all, and yet we expect to end the drought. Why are we doing this? Why is Kaizer Chiefs doing this? Because after losing to AmaZulu yesterday, there was a lot of talk, a lot of people have been hurt, and a lot of things have been said. But it's the same cycle, isn't it? It's the same cycle that we've been going through in the past 8 years. I won't lie, in my first year at varsity, I even just gave up on watching Chiefs because it was just pain. Every time it was just pain. You know it's coming, and yet you just blindly follow because, as they say, you can break up with your girlfriend, but you can never leave your team. It's just an emotional connection that you have with this team from the time you're a kid, so you can never really get any better. Now I want to talk about a few things, 4 things I think. The first one is there is one of the best coaches of all time called Carlo Ancelotti. Some of you know him. He's coaching Real Madrid right now. And if I told you that when he was coaching Everton the season before he went to Real Madrid, he finished 10th. He finished 10th. You understand me? He was number 10. And then he moved from Everton and went to Real Madrid. And with Real Madrid, he won La Liga and he won the Champions League. Along the road, he beat Manchester City, Chelsea, and with the PSG, and Messi, no Neymar, no Mbappe, and also beat Liverpool with final. What was the difference? Everton, he was coaching average players. As good of a coach as he was, but Everton was coaching average players. So as much as you can coach the players, if they're not good enough, they're just not good enough. So it doesn't matter. They will make you look like an idiot and the team will fire you and bring in another coach who can deal with mediocrity. And that is why sometimes you find coaches like Abo Ensmintendorp that I sit here sometimes and say, Guayana, Waidlali pilot football, so he can't say blah blah blah, whatever. But Omintendorp are coaches. I listened to someone saying this good Twitter space yesterday who are realistic. They just said, okay, snabadlala banje, and the only way I can have some sort of success with these players is by playing pilot football. And we didn't like that because we know how Chiefs used to play. And we're still holding on to the idea, Yoguti, the Chiefs that we know plays this kind of football. But the Chiefs that we know is no longer the Chiefs that we have right now, because the way the things are done right now is different from how the things were done back then. And it's been consistent over the last 8 seasons. We're not signing quality players. And the worst thing is that now we have this excuse of saying, but Sundowns signs all the good players. Sure, they do that. But there are a lot of other players that we could sign. Sundowns does not sign all the players that are wanted by Chiefs. Chiefs is notorious. It's known. We are known. Uguti, we chip out. We want to sign players ngama pre-contract so that we don't pay any money. It's known. Right now we're talking about how Chiefs are exploiting Uplom and not wanting to pay money. We know this team doesn't want to pay people money. We know this. And yet we sit here and we blame it on coaches like Abo Calvin Hunt. We blame it on coaches like Abo Baxter. Yes, I didn't like their football. Talk about how they were not playing young players, but then again, they're expected to win with the young players, only to find good you'll play a young player like Mashiane and then ends a mistake. It's expected. He's young. What are you expecting from him? He's gonna make mistakes. And because of that, some of these coaches end up not playing youngsters, which is not fair, I think, because, it's not fair to the young players, but it's also not fair to the coaches to not be given isn't or to build a team and be expected to do miracles. Namanj, we're talking about how the coach with Chippa United came out and said he talked about how Chiefs has players who are fighting for a relegation, and now they are basically good Chiefs. So he said you can't be scared of players who are fighting for a relegation. And we said, oh, he's disrespecting Chiefs. But where was Solomon's playing last season? Where was Mahlatsi playing last season? Where was Matlow playing last season? What is happening right now with Mahlatsi? Mahlatsi is not playing. He's not even making it to a match day squad. Different expectations. I love Mahlatsi. I loved Mahlatsi Swallows. But now it seems like he's not even cutting a match day squad list. And we take these things personal when people are just blaming the Chiefs and are underestimating the Chiefs and are disrespecting the Chiefs. But the management of Kaizer Chiefs have brought this thing upon themselves. And guess who's suffering? Us. Because Kaizer Chiefs as a business, they're thriving. That team, that family, they're thriving. They get money, they have sponsors. Yet the footballing side, not so much. So then it makes you say, we really need to have this honest conversation. And some people are obviously thinking right now, no, this is just a ploy for Mpilo to defend Uzwan. Okay. Some Uzwan. Bring in another coach. What difference is the coach going to make? What is the other coach going to play without a striker? Because the striker we have is injured. And as we've noticed, he was playing yesterday. He wasn't fit to play that game. Even when he is fit, there are elements of his game that are not convincing. His finishing, for instance. Doesn't have competition. We have players like Abo Pilat, who sometimes you can forgive because they've been going drama injuries, but then you look at how they are performing and then you can't help but question them. We don't have a depth. Our first 11, that's it. That's point number 2. Guti recruitment here too is so bad. It's horrible. It's just disgusting. Like, how long did it take for them to sign Caleb? Like, how long does it take for them to make a decision on signing a player? People will talk about how Uzwane said we are good enough. Here's the thing, I'll just give you a secret. There is no one. There is no coach in their right mind who still loves their job, who would go out in public and say, I'm not being backed. Even in teams like in Europe, where they are not just coaches, but they are managers, whenever a coach comes out and says, I wasn't backed or I'm not being backed, it ends up bad for them. I'm talking about coaches of the caliber of Jose Mourinho. Man United, you talked about how he was not being backed. Mind you, with that bad Man United squad, that coach was able to win a Europa League with them. Wow, in Europe. and still continue to say, I am not being begged. And he wasn't. And they fired him. They brought in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Wakocha naye, wapatanis. But the truth is, the players were still not good enough. Look at what they've done this season. They brought in a new coach. You can say that's the main difference because, even after Ole, there was Ngamkhohlwe Kamalaki, forgive me. But what happened this season is they did not just bring in Erik ten Hag, but they also gave him a left back, Malasia. They gave him, on top of Varane, who signed last season, they gave him Lisandro Martinez. That's another centre back. They gave him Casemiro in midfield, in addition to Sancho. And they also gave him another winger in the shape of Antony. 100 million on Antony, 80 million on Casemiro, some 30 odd million for Malasia, some 60 million on. That's a lot of investment. So it's not just about the coach. He's good enough, but there's still a lot of investment. Pep Guardiola is a good coach, very good coach, but he's been given about 60 million to spend on players like Abo Diaz, his defender, or Laporte, wabasign Efego, John Stones, wabasign Kyle Walker, wabasign Cancelo. It defense, they've spent over 200 million just signing a defender. We midfield or Rodri or Bernardo Silva. Completely new squad. And you're telling me Uguti Chiefs, all we have to do is to change Umangete because Umangete sucks, right? Because Umangete is inexperienced. Skakuluma ngaye, he's not perfect. That's not in no way me saying Umangete is perfect. It's me saying, let's be real. Because here's the thing you need to understand. People are talking about ngifuna ukukhuluma about ama-predictability abadlali and all those things, but I feel like it's too scripted. But now I'm being an honest Kaizer Chiefs fan to fan, into having this conversation. Uguti, we can talk about Zwane, but can we also talk about the scouts of the team? Who's scouting? Sporting director kahle kahle yini umsebenzi wakhe? Because as far as I know, is to identify the style of play of the team and the players that would fit that style. Right? That's their job. That is why even in teams like Manchester City, Liverpool, whatever, a manager has a huge say in who gets signed into the team. But coach, they are not like that. Ultimately, even nakhona kuma team anama manager, sporting director works hand in hand with the coach to make those decisions. But good Chiefs, we've heard coaches like Gavin Hunt talking about how the promises that were made were not delivered upon. Look at what Gavin Hunt is doing with SuperSport. SuperSport is selling all their best players to Sundowns season after season, yet they're in the position that they're in right now. Because they have a certain way that they've set them up. Okay, so dependa ebadlali nabanjengobhasera badala okabuza badala, it's realistic, and all the youngsters that we're generating are going to be sold to Sundowns, and then we'll sign more experienced players because we want to stay at that level, and uhanti kamsebenzela lokho. Dortmund, that's their strategy. Bona ke badlala ngabadlali abancane, and then they get better players like Sancho, then they get sold. Like Bayern basically takes all their players from Dortmund, from Mario Mandzukic, from Lewandowski or Mario Götze, Lewandowski, Haaland, Jadon Sancho, United and City. Now Jude Bellingham is going to be sold for another 100 odd million, 150, 200 million. Strategy is up. But what is our strategy? Because it's all over. Go all over ngempela, go all over ukuthi on one side you have ukuthi we are removing experienced players. But at the same time, the ones who are supposed to be playing right now and performing are all just players that were brought in just because. But more check the need that we have, really, it wasn't attendant to Guti. We need a striker. And I know some people will say, but Dupree was signed as a striker. That's why I go back to the sporting director in Agaboni Nuguti. If Uzo to sign Dupree as a striker, what kind of striker was he at Stellenbosch? Stellenbosch sits back and then uba attack, and then they exploit the space that's behind your defense and crush you. Chiefs team sit back, so that means Dupree has to dribble past people. There's no longer that space that he has to exploit, which means Dupree kumele adapt game yakhe into dribbling past players. And that is why we see Usehota shining better than Dupree, because Usehota can take on players and dribble them. Kantu Dupree was all about Stellenbosch, play the ball over, get the ball, attack the ball. It could be the same problem we have with Umendieta, by the way. Uguti na Stellenbosch plays a different kind of football than the Chiefs. So you could see Mendieta maybe, hopefully, if the Chiefs sign him. Hopefully, I did that much. So you could say Uguti Mendieta could be signed by Chiefs if they do that. But then you can find him struggling because ibhola edlalwa Chiefs nedlalwa Stellenbosch alfan. So ke indaba yami lapha ekutheni we can talk about how Zwane's tactics are. We can talk about what it didn't do right and what not. But at the end of the day, it will also come down to what have we been doing in the past 8 years? And how is that affecting us as a team right now? How is that affecting us as fans? Being ridiculed on social media. Siyantshela nina yekani Chiefs yenu. Yeah. It's a lot. And we just have to take it because we love the team and we'll continue supporting the team. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video, and until next time, remember, equals alpelo moy.